What's it really like behind the doors in a restaurant? Is it as stressful as it appears to the average person who sees these TV shows and movies, etc.?
Yeah, well, I think the thing about it is you can't put it off until tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you are running, quite a lot of staff, and they do make mistakes and all that. But it is changing. See, when I first started in kitchens, and including my kitchen, you work 14 hours a day, as did all the staff, and you work 6 days a week. And you were too frazzled and too tired and too anything to cope with things that went wrong. Whereas these days, people are starting to realise that not the absolute top echelon, I understand that. If a person wants to be the great chef in Australia, yes, they have to work those hours, that's all there is to it, and they have to be part and parcel. But there's lots of people that are coming through that it is a career, but it's not the be-all and end-all. And I know in our recent places in the last 10 years or 15 years, we've been encouraging them to have other interests, because the burnout was just getting stupid.
Yep.
Because you're expecting a kid that was coming out of school that really didn't want to be Australia's great chef, liked the idea of cooking, but they have to have other things that they do. And, we've had in recent years, they get a night off that they want.
Yeah.
The only time I always remember, and not casting any aspersions whatsoever, we had to put a stop to it one year because we had a lot of gay people working for us and they all wanted to go to the Sydney Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
So I think we nearly had to shut the restaurant because we said, of course you're going to what?
Biggest night of the year.
There's about 20 of them wanting to go to the Mardi Gras. So, we now say first in best dress. But if they want a Saturday night off, they get it off. If they want a Friday night off, they get it off. If they, have a sporting tournament coming up, they get it off. And it's because that we now have, I think, an average of 5 years per staff member, including dishwashers.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, because I'm not saying we're soft with them. I don't mean it like that. No, we don't yell and scream at them. But I'm not saying we're soft at them. But it's a win-win situation. They are doing the job really well because they know they can have a life outside.
Food is a little bit like fashion, isn't it, Ian? We go through these phases of everything's got to be really fancy and then everything's got to be simple. How do can you watch those trends and predict them, or do you sort of go along?
Well, over the years I've predicted things.
Yep.
And I've been wrong just as much as I've been right. It's really funny because I read an article recently and I have been doing comfort food on the show.
Yep.
And when I say comfort food, I'm talking about stews, braises, really nice chunky soups, those kind of things. I've been doing that on the show for years now. And my bars and restaurants have been doing it for years as well. I'm not saying everything's that. We still do, slightly fancy stuff, but we always do those kind of foods. And I saw a restaurant reviewer or writer, I suppose you would say, really, saying comfort food's the next big thing. And I thought to myself, where have you been hiding your head? Because we've had that slow food movement, which is certainly about comfort food. And, obviously top ingredients and regional and things like that. So you think to yourself, well, there's nothing really original. My mother and grandmother cooked comfort food. Now we've got a fancy pants name for it, but at the end of the day, they did slow-cooked shoulder of lamb. They did what was in the garden. They didn't have the money to go out in the middle of winter and buy asparagus. And that is the only thing that I get a little upset about this country.
Yeah.
And some of the top restaurants. They serve too much stuff out of season.
Right, okay.
They really should be following the seasons.
Because we do have such distinct seasons in most of the country, yeah.
But so they should be following them a little bit more carefully, because you do go to places and have snow peas and asparagus, for example, in completely the wrong time of the year. We know spring lamb is just stunning. That's when we should be serving it. Other times of the year, serve something else. It's not as easy as it sounds. It's all very well for me to sit here and say, but I do think sometimes we need to follow those seasons a bit. And my mother always knew what was in season. One, it was in our garden. But two, if she went to a vegetable shop, it was the big pile of things up the front. Not down the back, up the front. There was, this huge pile of carrots. Well, carrots were in season.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's the easiest thing. Still, you go into a supermarket. If there's a huge pile of carrots there, well, there's a chance that they're very good. If there's 6 snow peas down the back hidden, well, it means, no, they're not. They're not around.
That's right. Good, that's some great advice. I think that we did go through, I suppose, the 90s, I suppose you'd say, was that fancy food period.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And every dish that was served had 600 ingredients. And
was it only 600?
Well, that was the simple, they were the entrees.
Yeah.
But it's a simple equation, isn't it? I mean, a good meal doesn't equate to the amount of ingredients that go into it.
The prime ingredient has to be the star. Don't care what it is, don't care where it is. But the prime ingredient is the star, and the other things are the adjuncts. And sure, you want them to enhance and lift the flavour, but at the end of the day, you have to be careful what you buy. Now, that doesn't mean that you go out suddenly and buy the most expensive free-range chicken you can buy, but you can buy cheaper free-range chickens that are good. Now, that's what we're talking about. Please don't waste your money on rubbish, but please don't go out and get all excited and buy a bottle of truffle oil, which, if you're like me, you then decide that you hate, and you put 2 drops in something and you never use it again. So, you keep it. You keep it clever.
Yeah.
You buy cheaper cuts, you buy things like that. But if you're gonna cook something that is, a little special, make sure that you do your shopping a bit carefully.
I guess you also wonder how these people think that the average person is going to be able to find the time to create these concoctions. I mean, some of them are so complicated.
Yeah. Well, they are, and I suppose that's, why I brought out this book, to be honest, because it's about simple cooking and very exact cooking. And I said to one of your colleagues on the station, I'm tired of people writing into me and saying, what's a brunoise, what's a julienne. I made this recipe from Fred Friggle's home cookery book, a top chef, of course, who have no idea, because let's be very fair, chefs don't cook at home.
No.
Maybe once in a blue moon, and they'll tell you they do, but they don't. And this person said to me that, use 12 pots and pans or something. She said, I don't have 12 pots or pans. And this was from one recipe. And also another one that I saw had a canal of celery. Now, I can make any recipe work.
Yeah.
I really mean that. I have the ability to make any. I had 4 shots at this. I couldn't make it work. Because a quenelle is, you shape it with 2 spoons. It's normally made with fish or seafood. The famous one would be the pike quenelle of France in the early 20s or 30s, and you shape it with 2 spoons, and it sort of comes out as a sort of oval shape, and you poach it very gently. Now, to make one of celery, well, he obviously got a hell of a lot more talent than me, but he's saying this is what he makes at home, and this is what the person should be cooking at home. So, I'm saying the thing is, walk before you run, get a book that works, without the fancy pants, food ideas and things like that, and go from there. And I think I know a book just like that.
Yeah. We'll get onto the book in a moment.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
Ian, our eyes can deceive us with food a little bit. I mean, a lot of effort is put in restaurants in presentation, but at the end of the day, you've got to eat with your mouth, with your taste buds, don't you?
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a shame at times, is because they look so fancy. Look, yes, the first sight of food is what excites your palate. So I'm not talking about you just throw it on a plate.
Yeah.
But, the thing about it is, quite rightly, is it comes back to the taste at the end of the day. I went to a thing with a Spanish chef recently, because we know the Spanish have gone mad with this molecular gastronomy where everything tastes different or looks different than it really is.
Okay.
And what they'd done was that with liquid nitrogen, they'd made pellets of olive oil. I can't say on a polite radio station what they tasted like.
Yeah.
But they did ask me, and Chung Lu, the very, very wonderful chef from Adelaide, was sitting next to me, and they said, Chong and Hugh, what do you think? And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, why? I couldn't work out why.
Yeah.
Well, all right, then it's terribly smart, and these foams, terribly smart and terribly trendy and things. Why? What do they taste of? Taste of nothing. Red onion ice cream somebody served to me the other day. I gave it back. I said, I don't want red. If I want ice cream, I want chocolate. Chocolate.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
and this was with my main course, by the way.
If it works, why mess with it? I mean, you can put any 2 things together. I think it's just that effort to be fancy and that effort to be different. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't work.
In fairness, though, I'm not making excuses, but in fairness, it's to justify higher prices. Because what is always going to happen if you go to a restaurant and you don't have a great palate, and when I say great palate, we all have great palates. You haven't developed your palate, and you get the most beautiful piece of beef cooked, absolutely perfectly how you want, with some really nice vegetables and maybe some Café de Paris butter perfectly made, or some béarnaise made perfectly. A lot of people will think, oh, that's not what I wanted. I wanted pickled duck's bums on the top of it or something like that. And so there is that too, because you are governed by what your customers want to a certain extent. But I will never ever understand why are you having something that doesn't enhance the meal? I don't care what it looks like, and I don't care how fancy it is. And I do think at times our food writers and restaurant critics have a problem with Emperor's Clothes.
Yeah.
They feel that they cannot criticise El Bulli in Spain because it's the place, and they cannot go there and say, it takes you a year to get in there. It must be wonderful. Well, I go there, and I've been there, and I thought to myself, I don't know what I'm doing here. I can eat a hell of a lot better in Europe than this place where it took a year to get into.
They say that mechanics have the clunkiest cars, and it goes on and on. And you mentioned that chefs don't really cook. What really goes on in the Iain Hewitson household?
Oh, well, I don't cook at home. I cook at home at Christmas, and I used to cook at home for my daughter's birthday, but that was more reheating, I have to be honest. And the odd dinner party. If we have a dinner party or a lunch party, I will cook. But you're quite right about the clunkiest cars, because if you ever go to mechanics, they've always got something up on blocks out the back that's been there for 43 years. Electricians, they've got leads hanging down.
That's right, exactly.
I've spent all of my life, over 40 years cooking in kitchens.
Yeah.
When I get home, I have to be honest, the last thing I want to do is actually get in the kitchen.
Yeah, I think that's
Unless
fair
I
enough.
have to try something, and I will try something, but not, pretty rarely. So my wife cooks at home, I have to be honest.
I was going to say you'd have to be careful because you'd have friends that just want to be friends for your food, come around for a free Iain Hewitson meal.
Well, I think it's mostly why I've been married so many times, is because the wives think, oh, what a great idea, I've got a chef to cook for me, and then they find out I don't cook, so puts them off. Would that be the reason?
Oh, it could be. Which is a good segue into my next question. It's a tough life being a chef, isn't it? I mean, the hours are not kind.
Yeah, I think the thing about it is I've got an 8-year-old daughter, Charlotte, who's the apple of my eye, of course. And I think the thing is that I had her very late in life. She was born when I was 53. And I am so glad that I have had her later in life. Of course, there are things that I'm obviously unhappy about, the fact that I'm not going to spend as much time with her as I'd like to. And I'm not going to be around, as much as I would have wanted. But when I think of when I was 20 and 21 and even, 25 and 30, if I'd had her then, I would have hardly ever seen her.
Yeah.
And so it is tough on relationships, and you do get involved with people in the business, and that's mostly even worse because you're both working these hours, and all you do is talk about work. So it becomes really hard. But in this instance, as I said, I don't spend anywhere near as much time involved in the restaurants. I'm home, often at night. I'm always around on weekends. I work from home. I've got an office there, so I see her going off to school and all these kind of things. And I sort of thank God that I did have her later in life, because I think the reason chefs have, so many divorces and breakups and things like that, and restaurateurs, is purely and simply because of the number of hours they work and the fact that they're not around when they need to be.
You would think that with the popularity of cooking and cooking television shows, MasterChef, etc., in recent years, that there will be a bigger thrust of people choosing that as a career. But it's one, I guess, as we said at the start, I mean, I would imagine that it would be a career that you'd really have to have a passion for.
Oh, well, I don't think quite so much. I mean, the thing about it is there's a huge demand for short order cooks. And when I say short order cooks, I'm talking about people who are not trying to be the best in the world, which we mentioned beforehand. So there is a demand for that. So it can be regarded as a trade.
Okay.
And it can be regarded as a successful trade. I do remember somebody applying to me for a job not that long ago, and they always have to fill out an application form, and part of it said, why do you want to be a chef? And these days, now to mostly because I want to be on MasterChef. But this person said, because I want to be like Jamie Oliver. And I thought, that's, we'll skip the middle part, the hard work and everything, we'll just straight to be. Yeah. And I did say to them, I said, mate, you're not going to get the job. And I said, may I suggest if in fairness, he wasn't getting the job because there was people that had more interest, shall we say. And I said, you're not going to get the job. May I suggest if you apply to another television chef for a job, you say, I want to be like Huey.
Yeah.
not my competition. Goodness sake.
Exactly.
So he didn't get the job because he wasn't smart enough. No, that's only been funny. He wasn't. He was coming in from the wrong way.
Yep.
He saw the stars in his eyes and things like that. So that's not the way you go into the industry. And MasterChef, yeah, sure, it's been a huge success.
Yeah.
But how long? How long is it going to go on? I mean, is it going to be there in 19 years and people are still aspiring to be chefs, or will we get something else that comes along and they suddenly want to jump onto it?
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. I guess it could be a little bit like the food itself goes through these different trends.
Well, it's certainly got a few years to go. I'm not knocking it. I mean, it's been good for the industry and it's good for kids. It's got them interested. But the point about it is something else will come along and then they'll want to be a rock and roll guitarist like me.
Maybe another
maybe with no talent like me.
Maybe another series of Big Brother, perhaps.
I think we've done that one. Well, that didn't inspire anyone to be like that except badly behaved, did it?
Exactly. That's right.
We should have Gordon Ramsay on that.
He would have fitted in perfectly.
He would have been fantastic. He would have been the leader of the bunch.